can I thank you guys enough for the content this week? It's the first week of June where nothing really happens in sports, and we were trying to bridge to the NBA Finals, and the Monken man just spun this forward another day or two.
Well, and he also, in the process of it, and we'll get to some of the quarterback stuff, obviously, but he can't make up his mind with quarterbacks now.
Oh, I love that.
And he's as vocal as he possibly can be. And Shedeur did have a really nice day, by all accounts, on the practice field today.
He's excited to meet Deion Sanders.
Yeah, that was great. And there's, and again, even with the verse stuff, Verse fits like a glove.
Yeah.
You knew we'd say nice things about Verse.
Okay.
I just I appreciated that he didn't want to just sit there and wax poetic on Myles, because he didn't know Myles the way the fans do. It would have been disingenuous if he just talked about how great he was for the organization and how important he was for the organization and all these other things. He wasn't important to Monken. He never met Monken.
I think that was the most apparent thing, is that Todd is very happy that the Myles melodrama is over. He is excited about Jared Verse, and he is excited to not have to talk about Myles Garrett and their lack of relationship ever again.
Well, because he knew every time he had to speak, he was just lying, okay?
Yes.
And he knew he's not a very good liar, because, again, these guys are head coaches. They're not actors. They don't know how to lie. This is why Rutenberg seemed like it was the biggest giveaway you'd ever heard in your life. They don't know what they're doing in trying to lie. They're just coaches. And so when it comes down to it, I think Monken is satisfied to be done lying to everybody about what's going on with Myles Garrett.
I do think it's funny when a head coach says, very excited about Jared Verse and the draft picks. You can tell he's like, I got to cover all that we got for Myles. I said he fits us like a glove. He said, world of upside. These are just some of the phrases that I wrote down that he used. And probably the one that made me giggle was when talking about, Jared Verse and his kind of, is Jared excited to be here, I think was something close to the question. He said, who doesn't want to be wanted? We wanted him.
Yeah.
And I was just like, man, Todd Monken is a damn vibe.
Well, and at one point, he started just rattling off players' names. He sounded like the drunk guy at the bar trying to convince his buddy that the Browns are going to be good. He's like, no, we have Schlesinger. We have, and he just started naming players.
The difference is he got the names right.
Yeah, he didn't
the
call
drunk caller that calls in here is at the bar. Well, Schlesinger, you got Malik Collins, I think is his name.
And 75 iterations of Shedeur Sanders.
So some of the actual things that, one, beyond just the Jared Verse part of this, obviously everyone's going to react to the quarterback stuff. Spencer Fano being with the ones yesterday and today. That's the nice development.
At the left tackle spot in particular, yes. Too. Like they're not moving him around or doing anything funny that way. They're doing what they said they would do with him.
And he also went on to say, and this is the kind of nitty gritty football stuff that I do like to hear. Obviously he was asked kind of about, well, we know you want to get your quarterback done as soon as possibly, but do you feel the same way about the offensive line? And he basically was like, I treat them the same way. I'd love to have my 5 starting offensive linemen chosen, because the earlier we get to that, the better chance of continuity we have.
Also said he's a lot more confident in that than he is making the quarterback decision.
Now, you have been, and I have been as well to some degree, that it had been feeling fatalistic with some of the messaging from reports that we had gotten out there about Deshaun. Todd Monken said, every day I lean one way or the other with the quarterback spot. You are the Shastan on the show. How do we feel about the messaging about the quarterback spot?
Well, is Monken as reactionary as the fans on social media? Is that what this is? Because by all accounts today, and this is not just fans on social media, this is people that are there. I already talked to Coach Riz. We've been going back and forth. He basically said Deshaun was awful today and Shedeur Sanders was awesome today. And that's in a nutshell.
You hate to hear it.
In a nutshell, that's what it was. He had the best pass of the day by far, the touchdown to Isaiah Bond. He also had a really nice pass and a nice grab by Jerry Jeudy. That was a touchdown as well. And so it seemed like Shedeur had a really, really nice day. And it seemed like Deshaun really struggled. Deshaun didn't really have, great instincts out there. You get a lot of pressure on him. This is what I've told you before with Deshaun all the time. When it comes to decision making with Deshaun, I just think it's poor. And so he didn't look good today.
So you asked something about is Todd Monken like people on social media where you're back and forth every day, you're flip flopping back and forth. That's exactly how I want him to handle this situation now. It's not how I want him to be in training camp. It's certainly not how I want him to be in the regular season. But in mini camps, in voluntary mini camps, when you're trying to suss it out, that's what I want to see out of you. I want to see you say, Man, Shedeur did look good today.
Well,
Man,
at least he's not.
Deshaun did look good yesterday.
Yes, and he's not just a slave to what his previous ideas are, you know? And I feel like that's where sometimes coaches fall in problems and they end up in a spot you don't want to be in, is if you're just like, well, I already made up my mind, Deshaun's winning this thing, and I got no room for moving off that at all. Like, that's not what Monken sounded like today at all. That sounds like a guy that he's vacillating between the two quarterbacks consistently, because on some days Shedor's looking good, on some days Shedor's looking bad, and vice versa.
Now, he did save himself, and I don't know if this is a tell, but he in talking about how good Shedeur has come on recently,
yeah,
he then saved himself and was like, and Deshaun looked good today, and I was like, oh, I know that. I know what that might be the one fib that you talked about today of trying to make sure you shoot in Deshaun on that.
It was a great defensive day by all accounts from everyone that was out there. In general, it was a great defensive day.
I couldn't tell if Zach Jackson was being facetious or not, where he said top 5 mini camp or OTA.
Coach Riz said defense won the day, but in Deshaun specifically, he said had some accuracy issues, timing was off. And then obviously referenced how great Shedeur looked and thought he was very good today and thought he was way sharper than Watson was.
Another player that we got some love on here, Isaiah Bond.
But yeah, that was the play of the day. Yeah. By all accounts, that was the play of the day.
Well, but Monken said he's come on the last week and said, he's still, I don't know if he said project, but he's still developmental. That would be good to hear. Like, I honestly don't give a rat's patoot. I don't know why I said rat's patoot. I'm not a 70-year-old Midwest house mom.
Yeah.
However,
I don't give a rat's patoot.
I just didn't want to say the A word. And I don't even know why I just called it the A word. I say it all the damn time. And I just said, dang, what in the... I almost said something much worse.
Yeah. But you don't have to show us that you know how to curse. It's okay.
You know what? Now I do.
I believe you.
Yeah, now I do. Yeah. Not only is Matt going to have to really sweat it out when Monken's at the podium, now when your boy Nicky Dubs is here. But I don't care who shows up from that wide receiver room. I just need 2 guys who can prove they can play. You get 2 guys and Fannin puts up what he did close to last year, that's going to be the quarterback's best friend.
Did have a Concepcion drop that was highlighted. I did not talk to that with Coach Riz. He's going to turn it around, but I did see one of those videos floating around today. Yeah, apparently it's a really good defensive day, but I just need the offense to show some life, and it showed some life. But this is it. Monken's commenting on it, and the idea that every day he leans one way or another with quarterbacks. Everyone, I don't know why everyone thought that he was going to have this thing settled very easily. I know why. It's because he told us he would. But obviously, this is becoming harder for him, and I don't know that he's going to have it wrapped up as quickly as people thought.
I don't think it would be wrong if you listened to Todd Monken talk about Jared Verse, and he wants to be here, and he made an effort to be here. I don't hate it if someone maybe takes that as maybe a little shade at Myles.
Oh, I think a lot of people did.
Yes.
Right? I think that was a resounding thought out of this, is that Monken, he was pissed that Myles did all this, and he had to go through with it. And then in the meanwhile, he reaps 0 of the benefits of Myles. Like, at least when Myles is being Myles, past coaches, like Kevin Stefanski, for instance, at least got to see him, break a sack record and at least, wreak havoc on Sunday. Monken had to go through 3 months of questions about where's Myles, what's going on with Myles, to then get 0 of the payoff. It's kind of like us if we got fired right before the season got started. And
we had this conversation earlier.
And worked an off season doing all sorts of
summer radio,
summer topic radio, and you're like, man,
we're
that was
out
a long
training camp for all the dog days of summer.
It's a long slog, but you know what? The games are the big payoff. Yep. The games are when it's going to be awesome and it's going to be great. And then no, you're fired. You just go grab some bench. Like, that's basically what happened to Monken. He had to deal with all the nonsense that comes with Myles and got 0 of the payoff, and that I'd be pissed if I were him too.
So it's interesting. Like, there was some football guy stuff. We already mentioned the offensive line and trying to get that set as soon as possible. He basically said, I know who 4 of my 5 starters are, and then it just comes, who's the 5th guy and how do we organize it. But even the quarterbacks, and talked about that, the development of Isaiah Bond. I thought the most interesting thing was Todd talking about Jared Verse switching to this kind of even front 4-3 defense, the wide 9, which again we're still assuming, and how Verse is played in a 3-4 defense more as a stand-up linebacker. And it's funny, the more tape that I've watched of Verse, they did put him on the defensive line a fair amount. So it's not like he was like dropping into coverage every other play. That gives me some hope that this is maybe not the concern that I'm concerned that it could be. But I do think it's a big question. But Monken's answer was effectively, well, he used to have to do like 10 things. Now he's just going to put his hand in the dirt and go.
Yeah, I mean, it should set up better for him from that perspective, obviously. Now, I think something that would go against him, maybe, if we're just going to do a devil's advocate type thing, is where where he's playing, when he's playing, and the situational time of the games, right? One thing I saw some prognosticators estimating that Myles Garrett is going to have 75 more sack opportunities this year, like 75 more snaps where it's legitimately because going from the Browns to the Rams and playing in more 3rd and 7s. They played in the second most amount of 3rd and 7s than anybody in the NFL last year. The fact that they're going to be winning games in the fourth quarter instead of behind in games, 75 is the number that they came up with for Myles Garrett. First, probably going to take a hit in that department.
Yeah.
You're just not going to have as many close games, as many games where you're leading, as many games where you get the opportunities to put up the big time sack numbers.
Now, with this being said, Mike Florio was on with the Midday Boys earlier today and talked about potential red flags with Jared Verse.
I just wonder what the Rams really think of Verse. The Rams know him better than anyone. They've had him for the last 2 years. They don't think he's going to become Myles Garrett anytime soon. They think 30-year-old Myles Garrett is better right now than Jared Verse, and they're willing to take Myles Garrett in a spot where he's never getting any better. He's just going to begin to diminish over Verse, who is on the trajectory upward. That, I think, is a coup for the Browns, assuming that Verse is a guy who can blossom. But I think if the Rams thought that, they wouldn't have let Verse go. They would have come up with some other way to get Myles Garrett.
So this is interesting because usually Mike Florio annoys the living crap out of me. I do think that some of the, we really hated to give him up was PR crap, right? You clearly didn't hate to give him up because you gave him up. So if he was, it was so tough, you wouldn't have done it. Now I think maybe my rebuttal to Florio is teams get this kind of stuff wrong all the time. The Panthers didn't want to pay Brian Burns, I think it was $25 million a year. This happened after I left, by the way, so it wasn't like I followed this kind of a little remotely.
Yeah.
And because he had never cracked the 10-sack mark, and they were worried about whether he would be that guy, and then they traded him to the Giants for, I think, a second pick and a fourth-round pick. And I think it was a year later, Brian Burns had a career year. And I think this year, he had 15 sacks. So you just don't know. I think the point is they want to win right now. If Jared Verse becomes a top 5 pass rusher 3 years from now, for them, it might be 3 years too late.
Yeah, the way I looked at it was this was really hard for the Rams. But it was obvious because Myles Garrett's a much better football player right now, and they have this 2-year Matthew Stafford window. But it doesn't mean that they see something in Jared Verse that we need to be flagged and worried about. For me, it was pretty simple. It was like, all right, Jared Verse can be a really good player. It's just not in the timeline that they need right now. Verse isn't wrecking a game yet. Doesn't mean he won't a couple years from now, but he isn't wrecking a game yet. And in the Matthew Stafford era, they need to win right now.
So I'm not going to call it a red flag. I'm going to call it a beige flag. So if I had a beige flag about Verse, it's that he's going to be switching into a system that he's never played before in the NFL. And although I think he can do it, you don't know until you know.
Yeah.
Right? That's the beige flag. The Rams' willingness to trade him for Myles Garrett just seems a little common-sensey to me.
Yeah, I like that. My beige flag on this whole thing, because I agree it's not a red flag. I worry about the idea that it seems like everyone's awesome with the Rams.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things, on the D line. That's why when people are talking about not only adding Myles Garrett, but if you can come back and have Aaron Donald make a return, this might be the greatest defensive line ever assembled. Mm-hmm. But part of that is Shula's as good as he is at what he does, and they find ways to make players out of just about anybody. And that's one of the concerns I would have.
So it's funny you say that, because I think in this conversation, I understand the historical implications. And by the way, if you're just joining us, Jared Verse will be speaking to the Cleveland media within likely the next 10 minutes. It could happen literally the next 5 minutes. So when it happens, we are going to go out and hear Jared Verse's introductory press conference with the Cleveland media. But to reel this back in, I understand the historical thing, which is that the Browns didn't do a good enough job at putting defensive line talent around Myles Garrett. But the people that were talking about how much he's upgrading going from this situation to that situation, I think slept on how good they've actually developed the pieces around him. Mason Graham and Malik Collins gave Myles pressure this last year that he's never had up the middle, and that allowed him to reach his sack record. Alex Wright and Isaiah McGuire, both are two guys who are starting caliber defensive linemen if you look at the kind of advanced metrics. So it's funny, while I agree it makes sense, well, Myles is gone, everything's going to kind of change a little bit here. I kind of think Verse is still walking into a situation where there's enough talent around him, specifically up the middle, that I think he should still have chances to eat, even if it's not the way he did in Los Angeles.
So that's where we have to wonder if it was like a one hand washing the other type situation. You know, if Mason Graham had as good of a year as he did last year, and he didn't blow anybody out of the water, he was fine. But was that because Myles was getting double teamed and Myles was having all the pressure on himself, and even Malik Collins has never looked that good. That was it's insane. Before he got injured, that was a sensational year by him. He was trending to have an all-time season for himself, and the year prior he was left for dead. Is that because he was working with Myles, or did he find some way to turn a corner?
I also think I'll come back to, and this is the key where Rutenberg really has to just not screw it up. I think the system is a really good system, and I know the wide nine has its drawbacks, which is, if you don't hold your gaps right, you can really get gashed against the run. And we saw that at different points, not consistently, but at different points with the Browns over the last 3 years. And now you don't have Jim Schwartz to fix that. I think having a guy that has mastered the system, I think there is a difference there. But, man, I really like the system because it does the thing that I think you should do with a defensive line. It allows players to pin their ear back and just play football. It's the best thing I've heard of Monken, by the way, offensively, is he's like, we're going to remove all the crap, and we just want these guys to play fast. Every coach that I think knows their salt, unless it's like a Shanahan who has such a specialized system, right? But every coach that I really think the world of, their whole thing is, how do we get the players to stop thinking and play? And that's what I think Monken's going to do for the offense, but I think that's been the beauty of the Jim Schwartz defense if Mike Rutenberg can just keep that and keep that part of the wide nine.
Are we being too rosy when it comes to Verse? Now I feel like I've almost gone the other direction. I'm going to be accused of being the guy that as everyone's like, oh no, you guys don't know how good of a football player he is. Like, everyone knows how good of a football player he is. But if we've gone too far, have I gone too far in the other direction now with some of my concerns?
No. I think listen. One, I think it's pretty natural when everybody does the fluff job that has happened on all sides of this for your and my collective BS meters to go off. So I think that's just a natural reaction to what has been overly rosy kind of analysis of this. That said, like, my threshold for Jared Verse, and I understand that I'm speaking to a traditional stat. I'm not going to then go through a bunch of analytical stats as well. My bar is the same thing he did last year. 7.5 to 8 sacks this year with this defensive line will be a significant success for Jared Verse because of the beige flag of switching defenses and all the other stuff we've talked about.
I feel like most fans they're thinking now double digits or less, and I just think that's unrealistic.
I agree.
Maybe I'm just not holding him enough to a high enough standard. I think so much of this trade was about him, but so much of it was about the picks as well. And so I just don't put as much on him in all this.
I look at it as like the collective number of sacks for the team. Like, I think you still need to be, for this team to do anything remotely interesting, and it still might not be enough, you need to be top 5 to top 10 in sacks. And so that to me is when you go from Myles Garrett to Jared Verse, you're saying we have the depth. We are 4 deep at edge rusher, maybe 5 deep if Fano works out. And I still don't know they have enough depth up the middle, just real quick. But if you've got the depth, you can still, in the aggregate, get to the sack numbers you need.
Yeah, what's interesting, a couple years ago, they had a lot of pressures and not as many sacks. That obviously flipped a little bit last year with Myles having such a big season, and then Collins before he got injured. It'll be interesting to see what exactly they do, and I'm interested to find out how much Myles' presence really did make a lot of the guys last year shine.